Hi friends, I am excited to talk with you today about the wisdom of children. What can we learn from them and what can we teach them? I work with a lot of moms as clients of mine, and they are always trying to do right by their kids, right? And they're thinking about how can I teach them how to be functional, adaptive, successful adults in the world. Which is wonderful and absolutely in the child's best interest. I also encourage you to start thinking about what can you learn from them? What can your kid teach you? And when it comes to food and body, there's a lot of juicy stuff that our kids can teach us that we probably aren't even picking up on, which is why I want to point them out to you today. So some of the incredible things that our kids can teach us are healthy relationships with food, how to move our bodies in ways that'll be sustainable, so sustainable fitness for longevity. And then I want to talk today about body positivity as well. So how can we raise body positive kiddos? So starting with number one, nutrition. What can kids, toddlers, babies even teach us about how to have a healthy relationship with food? So it's so interesting when we think about how kids inherently know how to get their needs met. Think about when a baby cries because it's hungry, right? It knows that it needs nourishment. Somehow there's like a mind-body connection. There's something going on there that a baby knows how to essentially request to get its needs met. And so it will ask for food when it's hungry. And then when it's full, you'll notice babies, toddlers, adolescents, when they're full, they are disinterested in food. They push their plate away, right? When they are full, they turn their head. Say you're breastfeeding. A baby that's well fed, that's full, will like straight up fall asleep. Or they'll just stop feeding, right? Because they're full, they're satisfied, they're done. And so in learning how to have a healthy relationship with food as adults, we can tap into this wisdom we had as kids where we knew what it was like to ask for food when we were hungry and then to stop when we were full and enjoy the pleasure of eating, okay? So those are just 3 pillars of what it might look like to start moving in the direction of having a healthy relationship with food. We consider things like hunger, we consider things like fullness and satisfaction, okay? So it's important as we raise kids that we honor their autonomy of their bodies, okay? So if a child gives me very clear signs and signals that it is full, it's important that I don't push more food on them, okay? So a lot of my clients grew up in what we call the clean plate club, okay? Where they were forced to clean their plates at mealtime all the time, which is good. I mean, from an economic standpoint, you're learning not to waste. Parents want their kids to be well fed and nourished. Wonderful, very well intentioned. What this can do though is teach a child not to be in touch with their bodies. So if they notice a sign of fullness, but they're forced to keep eating, then they're gonna become chronic overeaters. Do you see? They're gonna become chronic overeaters because they've been trained to consistently eat past the point of fullness. So our bodies know when they've had enough, and it's important that we honor that we respect that, okay? And then same thing goes for hunger. Like, it is good for kids to have structure. It's good for kids to have meal times. But we also don't want to perpetuate like this habit where if they tell us we're hungry, we like consistently don't let them honor their hunger. So there are creative ways that, we can make sure that our kids are being fed when they are hungry. Maybe it's not mealtime, but maybe a snack would be appropriate, things like that. So this is important so that we can teach kids, hey, I see you, your hunger is important, your fullness is important, your body's trying to tell you something, right? That's what body respect looks like. And then make it clear from an early age that your body is trying to work with you, not against you, okay? This is like how body positivity develops as kids, okay? And then what's so interesting too is we have these studies done on toddlers, and what we find is toddlers who are given access to a wide variety of foods end up getting all the nutrients they need over time. They end up very well nourished, which is for a lot of people that sounds puzzling, because they're like, if I give my child free access to a wide variety of foods, where it's like kind of anything goes, you think they're only going to gravitate towards the candy or the sweets. And you know what? They might at first, but then before long, they're going to start to crave something else, and they're going to want something a bit more, nourishing, satisfying. And so before you know it, they're going to be asking you for carrots, and they're going to be asking you for something that's just a little bit more nutrient dense, and it all balances out over time. So when my clients get nervous that they don't have a diet to follow, or they don't have a strict plan to follow when it comes to nutrition, not only do we make it clear that, well, that was never in your best interest, right? Diets don't work. Diets are what have created dysfunction in the relationship with food. But rest assured, from these toddler studies, we know that when we have access to a variety of foods, we end up being well nourished over time, because our bodies really do know what they need. And you will not be able to eat hot fudge sundaes 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for a long period of time before you just start to crave, a salad or something. So you might have already seen this happen, or you might have seen this play out in your own life. Like maybe you have a weekend where you're enjoying those, what we call highly palatable foods, or, just a lot of, it's a holiday, whatever, Super Bowl, and you're enjoying a lot of those foods. And then like come Monday, you're like, you know what? I'm ready for like avocado toast. Okay. So it's like, we think that when given access to whatever, then we're just going to only crave the bad stuff. And research shows that's simply not true. It doesn't play out that way. But we also need to know that we do have access to a variety of foods, right? So that's one thing, that is super duper important when it comes to nutrition. Yes, we talk about carbs, fats, proteins, and, fiber, water, all of those good things. But honestly, if I could give you one piece of advice today when it comes to nutrition, what to focus on, it's variety. It's variety. And if you have a wide variety of foods in your diet, you're so much more likely to be well nourished, okay? We see that in dieters or restricted eaters, they end up being less well nourished than non-dieters or unrestricted eaters. And a lot of it is because they don't get variety, because they have all these restrictions of foods they're not allowed to have. And so their health suffers, their level of nourishment suffers. So it's important to not have those restrictions so that you can have variety, so that you can be well nourished, okay? And then number 2, I would love to talk about, aside from nutrition, just fitness, movement, exercise. What can kids teach us about that? Well, one cool thing is we know that when kids are full, they become disinterested in food, and they usually just like want to go out and play. Or at least that's how it was when I was a kid, before like iPads and stuff. But they want to play. And so that's like one aspect of having a healthy relationship with food, is you get what you need and you move on with the rest of your life. And you go hang out with your friends, and you're present, and you're engaged, and you're creating meaningful memories, you see? So if I am not like obsessed about food all the time, and if I'm not having these crazy blinding cravings, and if I'm not constantly hungry, then I can be so much more free to just go about the rest of my life and make meaning. So that's, if we're moving on from food, going to movement, think about what could be meaningful for you when it comes to movement. So one of my favorite authors, registered dietitian Rebecca Scritchfield, says the best type of movement is the kind that you can do consistently. The kind that you can do consistently is the kind that's enjoyable. If I dread exercise, I might like force myself to do it for a little bit, but it's going to ultimately be unsustainable because I'm not going to be motivated to do it. So with movement, we need to find something that is truly like deeply enjoyable for you. And there are so many options. There are so many creative ways that we can move our bodies, truly. It doesn't have to be just, CrossFit. It doesn't have to be kettlebells. It doesn't have to be cycling. Like it doesn't have to be what you would traditionally think about for fitness. If you hate running, that's fine. Like there are so many other things that we can do to move our bodies, and they count. They count. So think about here's one tip. So I gave you my nutrition tip, which was variety. My movement tip is think about how you moved your body as a kid. So going back to childhood, what were some enjoyable ways for you to move? Straight up, maybe it was like hopscotch, jump rope, I don't know, rollerblading. You can do that. Why not? Maybe you danced, maybe you did gymnastics. Like, what were you into? And why couldn't you do that again? It could just bring you joy. It could bring you joy. And we need movement to be tolerable at the least, but hopefully like actually enjoyable if we want it to be sustainable long term. So if you don't come up with anything, maybe you weren't active as a kid, that's fine. Remember that health is not a moral obligation. You are not morally obligated to move your body even for that matter. But if it's valuable for you and if you feel like it would be enriching of your quality of life, then great. Let's talk about ways that we can be creative in your movement. There's so many ways to be creative in your movement. And so kids teach us how to move their bodies, release these inhibitions, and they're always having fun when they're playing, So think about a way that you might be able to tap into that. And movement doesn't have to be militant, okay? Lastly, body positivity. How can we raise body positive kiddos? Well, if we are not body positive ourselves, it's going to be impossible for us to fully teach our kids how to be body positive. So maybe we need to do some work for us. Maybe we need to put ourselves first and our growth first and become more body positive. So that means like examining my internalized fat phobia. That means examining my internalized weight stigma. And that means becoming a bit more accepting and respectful of my own body. I can't really teach my kids to be accepting of their bodies and respectful of other bodies if I'm not doing that in my own life. So it's got to start with you. At the very least, do not let your kids hear you talk negatively about your body. Do not stand in front of the mirror and say, I feel fat, using fat as a pejorative term. Do not let them hear you speak negatively about your appearance. Because what if they grow up to be kids in larger bodies? What if they grow up to be teenagers and adults in larger bodies and they heard you talking negatively about fat? Then how are they going to feel about their bodies, right? Leave weight stigma out of your house. They're going to get enough of it in the outside world. They need to know that not only do they need to be thin, they don't need to be thin to be valued and respected and loved. They need to know that. They need to know that they don't need to be thin to be valued and respected and loved. They need to know that they can also, if health is of concern to you and your family, they need to know that they also don't need to be thin in order to be healthy. Can you teach them the truth that weight doesn't equal health? And if we are concerned about their health, there are so many health promoting behaviors that we can instill in them completely outside of weight, completely regardless of weight. So remove the focus from weight and body positivity. Maybe we start with gratitude. So maybe in terms of your body, how you're talking about your body, you let your kids overhear you being like, wow, it's so cool that I was able to do X, Y, Z with my body today. Or you say directly to them, like, I'm so grateful for my body because it gave me you. If you gave birth to your child, then you could say something like that. And then they start to get in this mindset of gratitude around their body. And then after, if they are active, if they are engaged in sports, like maybe you point out to them intentionally, like, how cool that your body was able to move in that way. Like you were able to run up and down the field, like your body supported you. How cool is that? So that they don't take that for granted. And, and especially when it comes to like differently abled kids, like there are a lot of kids who would love to be able to run up and down a field, but can't. So it creates this awareness around how much your kid has to be grateful for and how much respect we should be showing our bodies, how much reverence we should be showing our bodies, okay? So Don't let them hear you talk negatively about your body, and certainly not other people's bodies. They will learn to judge their bodies and other bodies from you. Don't let them get that from you. Remember that weight doesn't equal health. We love our kiddos any size, absolutely any size. They can be healthy at any size, okay? And we can advocate for our kids at the doctor's office too. We can ask, like if we do have larger bodied kids, we can ask the doctors, okay, well, what advice would you give to a child in a smaller body? We can do the same for ourselves when we're at the doctor's office when it comes to body positivity. If your kid's with you, let them hear you advocate for yourself. What advice would you give to a person in a smaller body? Weight loss is not good advice, okay? Gratitude. Maybe body positivity starts with body respect or body neutrality, and we can cultivate that neutrality or that respect from a place of gratitude, okay? So just to recap, what can we learn from kids? They're awesome at eating intuitively. They're awesome at honoring their hunger and fullness. And they end up being well nourished if we give them access to a wide variety of foods. And so all of this can translate to adults too, right? That we can have healthy, positive relationships with food if we take after kids and we model after what is just inherently easy for them. Joyful movement, right? What was enjoyable for you as a kid? Maybe it's something that you can engage in again. And if not, that's okay. But if movement feels important to you, or if movement feels valuable and possible for you, if movement is realistic for you, then we talk about ways to make that sustainable. And the best way to make that sustainable is to make it joyful and kind to your body. Body positivity. We have to maintain for our kids that weight doesn't equal health. We have to maintain that there's so much especially for able-bodied kiddos, to be grateful for, okay? And we have to set that example as parents. I'm not a parent, I keep saying we, but as an adult, if you're a parent, you have to set that example, okay? Let your home be free from weight stigma. Let your home be free from fat phobia, and watch how body positive your kids grow up to be, okay? If you need help with any of this, go to mariascrementi.com, book a call with me. I would love to talk with you. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll talk to you soon.